quickest this morning in the wet on a new BMW. So I expect to see the Brazilian moving his way forward in this race.
Yeah, all eyes on Danilo Lewis, Team Brazil. He's on a new, look like 2023 BMW M1000RR. And he wasn't fifth, Jason, just by one lap. He was fifth. He got knocked back down to seventh. He went back up to fifth a couple of times. He showed some very consistent speed. And to come from 18th on the grid, we'll see what he is able to do. It'd be nice to see Lewis come back on form here in these wet conditions. But all eyes going to be on the 99 of P.J. Jacobsen as riders are done with their warm-up lap. Now they're going to take their grid positions and get this race underway. Our question, of course, is a guy like J.D. Beach. He hasn't had a lot of experience on a superbike yet, period, in a while, as he's a flat tracker. This guy, Skoltz, has got something magical. And, of course, Josh Herron, who is on that Mount Airy Casino Resort Spa livery. That, of course, is Mount Airy Resort in the Poconos. But it's time to get racing.
So key here to get a good start, especially if you're on that front row. You don't want to get back in that mess, Greg.
Here we go. Lights off, and we're away racing. And it looked like Gagne got another classic start for him as the number one will take over the lead and bend it into turn number one. Will there be any challengers for him? Oh. No, it looked like maybe Herron was going to go up the inside, but doesn't do it. So the number one plate, Jake Gagne, leads the way through turn two.
But that danger guy is the number two of Josh Herron. He got a great start. I watched it from outside the post here, outside our window, where we're posted up over the front straight. Herron, as we know, these wet conditions, we've seen him win here in the rain in the past. So great start for him. Whole front row got off pretty well, Greg, and as you say, it's Gagne out in the front trying to get away early.
I'm looking to see who's back there in fourth place right now.
Is that JD in third?
Yeah, it looks like JD Beach in third place. So it is JD Beach. Fresh and Lean Progressive Yamahas right now in first and third place.
Looks like P.J. Jacobsen there, maybe in fourth. Just looking, it looks like a BMW, I think, there in fourth. Unless that's Bobby Fong, I can't, just so hard to tell in this mist. That's P.J. Jacobsen. Yeah, you can see the gold on the gloves there. So P.J.'s done a good job of not letting those leaders kind of get away. The big movers, obviously, J.D. Beach comes from the third row. Herron comes from the second row to slot themselves in second and third, respectively. A little bit further back now, these four guys are already starting to pull away. This is the sealant patches that I was talking about earlier. You're going to see they're going to roll right through. Herron was rolling around the outside of it, as is JD. All three of them roll around the outside of that patch. Some guys are rolling through the middle of it. Some guys are rolling around the outside of it.
There's Skoltz, Posh, and Bobby Fong in that order. So for Brandon Posh, he didn't get the good first lap that he wanted on that Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki, but we have a lot of laps to go, 15 to go. So expect riders to try to find some clean air here as number 11, Matthew Skoltz, looking to better his position now. The first lap from a standing start is a 1:42.808.
That's fast.
Yeah, in these wet conditions, it certainly is. There's a lot of trust for Jake Gagne and his motorcycle in that Fresh and Lean Progressive Yamaha.
Yeah, now, you know, with 16 laps, 16 laps seems like it takes forever in these kind of conditions as a rider, you know. You're going so much slower. They're going some almost 20 seconds a lap slower, Greg, than they would be in the dry. So it's probably going to get trimmed down to probably about 15 to 18 seconds. As you can see now, this group is bunching up a little bit behind Herron. I thought Herron might have the wherewithal to go with Gagne, but Gagne is in a field of his own at the moment. But this is what I talked about with that HSBK team. He'll be able to come in today and tell him some of the things that he didn't like. They'll make an adjustment for tomorrow. Then again, this race could come back to Josh Herron the more he gets comfortable and the more laps he does.
Yeah, if you're just tuning in, the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati losing its normal red livery for Josh Herron. That's the Mount Airy Casino Resort Spa in the Poconos that they're running special part of the sponsorship package for the team this season. And of course, that purple and white livery looking really cool. Hannah, what do you have on Josh Herron?
He hasn't ridden the V4R in the rain before now, and he was really comfortable this morning, and he feels like every single lap that he got, he was more and more comfortable. He could push it more and more, and he felt that it gave him some confidence, and he already has confidence in the rain. I mean, he won here in 2018 by a big margin, and quite frankly, he said in the dry he was just off the pace, even though he felt physically good and that the motorcycle felt physically good. He was glad to have it rain because it's kind of, you know, as they say, the great equalizer. And I asked, do you think that you can win in these conditions? He said, for sure. He's feeling good in the rain, but Jake Gagne's making it pretty hard on him right now.
Yeah, he is, but we've seen before in rain conditions across many years that anything can happen to a leader.
Did you see JD there? It almost looks like he might have an issue with his visor as you saw him come up over the top of turn 2. This is the concentration that it takes, Greg, when you're feeling for every last little bit of grip in these conditions. Your throttle hand gets a lot more sensitive as well, and you're cautious of every part of the tire that you're putting that motorcycle on with the amount of throttle that you're giving it. So that's what you see when you see those slow motion shots. The eyes are looking forward, but there's so much feel happening underneath these guys of what they're trying to get out of the motorcycle. But for JD Beach, it looked like now he's got passed by PJ Jacobson. I don't know if he had a problem with his visor. It looked like when he came up over the top of turn 2, he was doing something to either wipe his visor. You see Matthew Schultz now on the 11. He's starting to come to grips with these conditions as he goes quickest first split of the race. He's red on our screen. So the number 11 now is starting to try to move forward as well.
And that's all a part of really feeling it out as PJ goes a little bit wide. Not sure if that was part of his strategy as the other riders were taking a tighter line. But there is the Westby Racing number 11, Matthew Schultz, a rider who in the early days of MotoAmerica was able to win in the Superbike class on a stock 1000 machine in the rain at Barber Motorsports Park, Jason, if you remember back.
Oh, yeah.
And really opened the eyes of a lot of people.
Ooh,
Yeah, that didn't get a little sideways. At least that's what it looked like from all the rain on the camera lens.
No, you're 100% right, though. A tremendous amount of talent here in Matthew Schultz, and it's good to, he let those guys get away a little bit early. A lot of laps left. He's starting to move his way forward right now. So, yeah, we'll see if he can continue that route forward.
Jason, what makes a rider so good in the rain? What is a rain specialist as Schultz goes 139.914?
I think the sensitivity that you can get from the bike. I think the amount of movement, as you see here with Matthew right now, the amount of movement from side to side as we look at De Silva is down. Looks probably like in that turn 10 area. But I think getting back to your question, everything gets a lot more sensitive in these conditions, Greg, and you can even watch it with our race leader, Jake Gagne. You're going to see a lot of the stuff that he does. You see the bike get up off the edge of the tire there and the throttle gets down. All of his movements become very, very subtle. You don't see a lot of movement around in the actual seat itself. These guys, though, Greg, at 2.7, they're not letting him just kind of walk away, although Gagne responds there with the second quickest split, or the quickest split in the second sector. Last time through, Matthew Schultz threw down a 39.9. He was the quickest rider so far in this race as PJ has a look at PJ Jacobson going up. PJ has a look, at Josh Herron as they go up the hill. This is turn 9, turn 10. He's going to make that pass.
Ooh.
And watch this. He goes actually through the ceiling patch that the other guys were going around. Watch. See him go through that? And he's rolling through the middle of that. And he actually caught PJ a little bit through he caught
Herron caught
JD
PJ?
Beach,
Oh,
JD Beach earlier in the race. He went through that ceiling patch and JD didn't. And you could see it was definitely a little bit of an advantage for him there.
Herron moving around on the straightaway. Of course, when you go through some of these water patches, it's going to upset the motorcycle. And you can see Herron really looking for traction. And another move by PJ, and he gets in there. And, well, you can see where he goes over another one of those sealer patches as well. And so you got to be cautious through there. And
now you can kind of see JD Beach is now on the back of Herron. So whatever the pace is for Josh at a 40.2, 40.5, I feel like he might feel like that's his ceiling at the moment. You see PJ Jacobson has raced away now from this battle for third as Matthew Schultz continues to close in. 38.9 that last time through for Jake Gagne, fastest lap of the race. Hannah?
For PJ Jacobson, this is his home race, and he's really familiar with this track, just not necessarily in these conditions. And he's not really sure what to expect in a race scenario because they don't have any rain sessions on this bike this year, so he'll definitely be learning a lot right now. But he likes the rain, and he's ridden in the rain quite a bit throughout his career. And while he struggled this morning, they got the setup dialed for the race, and so it seems to be working out for him right now.
Yeah, I mean, every dry setup of a motorcycle is very individualistic, Jason, of course. But the rain is the exact same way. Some riders opting not to make any changes. Some riders will say, I want softer front end, not rear end. Some just the rear end. And some people, like I remember, our commentating colleague, Roger Lee Hayden, he would say, hey, look, I want an entirely new shock and I want new forks on the front of the motorcycle, and it's a very specific rain setup. That's just in the suspension, let alone you talk about now electronics that are involved as well.
Yeah, I think that when you think about rain setups, the general consensus is always throughout the paddock, you'll hear these guys go immediately softer. So obviously, if you can test in it, or if there's a shock that you like, in Roger's case, there might have been a rain setting that he just found that he loved. And so when he would go back to races, if it rained, maybe that was something that he felt like he had to go back to, a set of forks and a shock that he liked. Generally, everybody will go softer. They'll probably do some things to the electronics to make the bike's power not hit as aggressive. Some riders might ask for a little bit more TC in these kind of conditions because the bike will spin up a little bit earlier in some spots. So these are all things that you can change and adjust on the bike. As you can see, PJ's gotten away. PJ goes quickest lap of the race at a 38.2, some 3/10 quicker.
But unfortunately for PJ Jacobsen, he passed under a waving yellow flag. And for that, he's going to have to relegate 2 positions. He's not going to get that information probably until we get onto the front straightaway where that information is given. So PJ Jacobsen, the 99 Tytler Cycle BMW, has a 2-position penalty for passing under a yellow flag.
So he's going to have to basically slow himself down. So hopefully they can get that penalty on a board or get something out there to him so that he can actually see that, because that's going to be a hard thing for a rider to distinguish, especially in these conditions, to actually know that they've got a penalty. You see him getting a little bit loose on the inside, and right now for PJ, he's got to be feeling pretty good about where he sits. He can see that Gagne's not getting any further away. So being able to read your pit board in the rain with mist and things like that could be a difficult thing for him to see. So we'll be able to look out the window and see if he gets that actual sign and see what happens. You see Matthew Schultz has gone through on JD Beach in that battle for the final podium position between these 3 riders.
Fastest lap of the race again for PJ at 1:37.860, and Josh Herron off. And into the weeds.
Yep, it's going to take him a minute. You're going to see Corey Alexander go by and Brandon Posh here on the inside of your screen. There goes Corey Alexander and Brandon Posh. Corey actually went past Brandon on that front straightaway. So Corey Alexander up to 6th. That's going to move him up to 5th, and Brandon Posh up to 6th as Herron finds himself in 7th now, getting back out onto the racetrack.
And that, of course, is a shame for him, as PJ, after doing the fastest lap of the race, has a 2-position penalty. But for PJ Jacobsen, he's still on the gas, Jay. He goes fastest Sector 1 split at a 27 flat. Then all of a sudden, Jake Gagne goes fastest Sector 2 split. PJ answers with that. It's just going back and forth. 21.4 in sector number 2 for Jake Gagne. Gagne may have or may not have seen the fact that PJ has a penalty and not know that the 99's behind him to begin with.
Yeah, well, overseas, a lot of times when people watch MotoGP and things are getting put onto these guys' screens so they can actually see it. Right now here at MotoAmerica, our guys are still having to read pit boards and trying to be able to get across to PJ that he's got a 2-position penalty is going to be a lot to get on a board, and probably something that he's not going to necessarily understand when he comes through. For Jake Gagne, he's looking at his board and he's seeing it go from 3 seconds down to, what is it now, Greg? It's 2.1. So Gagne is continuing to push forward. He goes 37.5 to this man here's 37.6. So PJ does not know about the 2-rider position penalty. Will there be a time? Will there be a time?
Yeah, we'll have to get that sorted out and see what happens. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to get the 2-position penalty on timing and scoring, or if he needs to roll out of it. Yeah.
So we'll do a little checking in on that. So for right now, Matthew Schultz has found himself up into 3rd place as we saw Herron roll off the track. So Schultz 3rd, JD Beach 4th, Corey Alexander 5th. But right now, the pace at the front between the guys that we are watching continues to go down. So 37.5, 37.6, 38 next for Matthew Schultz. He's going to be some 7.3 seconds behind the leader, though, at this point. So for Matthew Schultz, he's going to have to find about another second to continue to watch this gap not get bigger between the first 2 riders ahead of him. You see him there. The 11's done a really good job as he starts to just pull away ever so slightly now from JD Beach.
8.5 laps to go in this race. Medallia Superbike race number 1 as Jake Gagne continues to set the pace. Matthew Schultz in 3rd spot on the racetrack for the moment. So for PJ Jacobsen, the question, of course, is what's he going to do on the racetrack? The stewards can decide what happens to PJ, but typically it's going to be a 2-position penalty. So we see 2-position penalty for passing under yellow for the 99. The question, of course, is does that mean that's going to just happen automatically? And Jake Gagne only has to worry about Matthew Skoltz? Or is it the fact that PJ would have to actually drop back 2 positions?
Yeah,
that's the question. And unfortunately, as the race wears on, the gap between those 2 positions continues to grow larger and larger.
Yeah, and the thing that you have the biggest problem is this guy here sees somebody closing in on him, but that somebody closing in on him isn't really part of Gagne's race, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
that's the problem. When you have a situation right now for Gagne, he's getting on his board +2, +3. All of a sudden, if it's just +1, but he's getting +5 or +8 on his board, it's going to be a little bit confusing for Jake because he doesn't know about the penalty that PJ has. So for Gagne, he's going to continue to push hard, thinking that somebody's actually closing in on him who actually isn't part of his race.
Yeah, when in fact the fact is he's got really an 8-second lead over Matthew Skoltz, who will be in 2nd place. JD Beach, Corey Alexander, who's 5th on the racetrack right now, a couple positions behind the 99, Brandon Posh. So Corey Alexander back there on the 23, having a good run in the rain at what is his home track. Of course, New York just up the road. Corey Alexander, part of the Hudson Valley Motorcycles family. PJ had a look to his right at his pit board. And so his team's going to have to decide what information they're going to convey to PJ Jacobsen. Last time by the stripe, it's Gagne who goes 137.4. He's done a 136.7, so he's definitely backed off the pace ever so slightly. But that 2023 BMW M1000RR PJ Jacobsen certainly has put on a show this year. There's a look at Josh Herron in 7th place on that Ducati Panigale V4R. As Hannah mentioned, his first go in the rain on this motorcycle. It hasn't gone to perfection, but Josh continues to get out there and circulate. And if we have the same conditions tomorrow, that's a heap of data for the team for our final Medallia Superbike race of the season coming up tomorrow. There's Max Flinders, the number 88, who had a get-off earlier today as he's going to be passed by Jake Gagne soon. And Flinders, this morning in the wet, had the motorcycle get on top of his ankle, and he was not feeling 100%. And I have to imagine that the 88 Flinders still not feeling 100% right now. But look at the knee pucks on the Alpine Star suit of Jake Gagne. If they look a little bit funny to you, if you're used to seeing motorcycle races in the rain, that's because Alpine Stars came up with basically a double thickness knee puck. It looks like PJ's got a thicker knee puck too on his Revit suit. That of course helps the riders to feel where the edge is. It helps a little bit.
It certainly does, yeah, because you can kind of feel for the ground just a little bit more. You can see here on the board, there it says 2 positions, but that's going to be really, really hard to read, Greg, at that speed and trying to figure out what that means. So and you can see there's not a definitive sign that says drop 2 positions. That's really what you need at that point. You need enough lettering and a big enough board that's going to tell you drop 2 positions. And so that's effectively, I don't know what that does to PJ at this point. You can see the lead he's got over Matthew Skoltz as they continue to go around, and JD still behind him.
Yeah, and that's the ruling. He must give up 2 positions for passing under
That must have been when De Silva fell over there in turn 10. The corner workers and things were probably still removing that motorcycle.
They were. You could see it actually in the shot.
Okay.
For sure. Yep. So Jake Gagne leads the way. PJ Jacobsen in 2nd, although he's got to give up 2 positions. Matthew Skoltz, JD Beach, Corey Alexander over Brandon Posh. Josh Herron in 7th. Benjamin Smith in 8th position. Hayden Gillum in 9th. Ashton Yates in 10th. Noah Lampkin and Stefano Mesa on the Tytler Cycle BMW in 12th. And Danilo Lewis is back there in 13th place from 18th for the Brazilian. After 5th fastest in this morning's qualifying session in similar conditions, Danilo Lewis trying to find his way into the top 10. But Jason, what kind of job is Jake Gagne doing right now? I mean, this is a guy who has proven to everybody he can do it in the dry and he can do it in the wet. Now his pit board indicates that he's got 3.5-second lead over his next competitor.
Yeah, and it's at 2.9 on our board at the moment. So again, this is a thing where Jake's pushing hard because he doesn't want that time to come down anymore, and he wants to be able to keep this at hand. So he's got 5 laps to go And, you know, Greg, in these kind of conditions, when you're the lead guy, when you're actually pushing the pace, you're the guy that's kind of setting the tone, if you will, it's difficult because you're the one pushing hardest. But if you look at his motorcycle and how well it appears to just be working, there's nothing extra that's going on here that you can see that Jake's having to make this motorcycle do. It looks fairly planted, and it looks good under acceleration off the corners. You can hear him, the way he's rolling on that throttle from the apex out, nice and smooth and very, very controlled.
If you are used to watching Medallia's, oh, and Matthew Skolt's down.
Man.
Out of third place, really in second place, and that was after Matthew just set the fastest Sector 1 time of the race. And unfortunately for the South African, he is down trying to get that bike going.
Oh, he ran off the track. He ran off the track going towards turn 5 and then got off the inside. I was trying to figure out where he was, but what had happened is he had gone too quick through turn 4. It pushed him wide. He got out onto the grass and then fell off on the inside. So he's got the bike back up. You can see chunks of grass falling off it. So,
all right, so PJ's going to come onto the front straightaway. We're going to see if his crew has tried to alter what is on his pit board to communicate that he must give up 2 positions.
Yeah, look, see,
I think they just missed it, yeah.
Like, and that's impossible to read. I hate to tell you, but they're doing their best.
Yep.
But you can't read that when you're going by at 135, 140 mile an hour in the rain. It's gonna confuse PJ more than anything. So, you know, at that stage there, it's for PJ, he's gonna wonder what is actually going on there. And if it's true that he's got to drop 2 positions now with Matthew Skolt's going out, as that looks like Escalante, or Brandon Posh. Brandon Posh has gone down in the last corner, Greg. This is actually coming onto the front straightaway. So the 96, again, something we have not seen this young man do. The lack of mistakes that he has made for the amount of pressure he's been put under to come and perform as well as he has done, it's a shame to see that happen there. So Brandon Posh is down, so if he's actually got to go 2 spots, that's going to promote JD Beach and Corey Alexander, you know, 2nd and 3rd. There's JD Beach there as he rolls out of turn number 5, and you see just in the background Corey Alexander on the other Tyler's BMW, but for JD Beach doing a really good job. Here's Brandon Posh. He gets the bike loose on the way in. So that's puddling, that's hydroplaning there. That's what you're going to see. That means that the puddles have gotten bigger and worse. You know, all the years that we have been calling races, Greg, I've never seen that happen in that spot. So let's just hope that Brandon gets up and he's okay. As you see, Ashton Yates has now parked his bike up against the stack of tires. Trying to figure out where that actually is as well. Don't know if he fell off or if it looks like the bike broke. He's not dirty or muddied up, is he?
No, it looks like the bike maybe have quit on him. If you're looking at the left part of your screen, our scoring pylon, you see the little red chiclet that's down in the right part of the name. That also indicates that they're part of the Superbike Cup, like Nolan Lampkin, who is our Superbike Cup champ. But Jay, let's focus on Corey Alexander. As Corey comes across the stripe, he's 4th on the racetrack, but because PJ Jacobsen has a position change, Corey Alexander right now finds himself on a podium after the first go at getting one of these 2023 M1000 RRs. Yeah, he jumped on this bike for the first time yesterday. Corey's been riding a bunch of different bikes, had a bit of a tumultuous year this year, riding for Tyler's BMW. So he jumped on this 23 yesterday and had some issues with it, couldn't get the bike turning, and the team went to work overnight. They found something this morning that they felt was the hindrance to making it to where Corey couldn't get the bike to turn. And now here in the wet, even in the wet this morning, he was in and out of the pits quite a bit. This is definitely probably the most promising ride that we've seen from him this season, as he's moved himself up to 4th on track, as you say. He ran 38.3 the last time by. JD Beach, he was a second quicker, even though JD's probably pit board watching at the moment, knows that he's got 4 or 5 seconds on Corey Alexander at the moment. Corey's going to continue to push forward, and this is really what this young guy needs. He needs a good, solid, whatever, 15, 16 laps under his belt, and then hopefully the team can go to work and give him something a little bit more even tomorrow. Yeah, and if this sorts itself out the way we think it's going to sort itself out, and he's able to put this thing on the podium to do it here at Jersey Motorsports Park in front of his home crowd, all of his family and friends, it's going to be a party at Winter Circle if he can pull it off. We have 2 laps to go for Jake Gagne here in Medallia Superbike race number 1, as the team now has tried to abandon basically what they were trying to tell PJ Jacobsen If you're just joining us, unfortunately earlier in the race, P.J. Jacobsen passed under a waving yellow flag, and he is under a penalty that he doesn't really know about yet, where he must give up 2 positions. And right now, Jason, PJ's 3.4 behind Gagne, but more importantly, he's 20 seconds, or sorry,
17.
He's 17 seconds ahead of Corey Alexander.
Yeah.
So PJ would have to roll out of it and wait for that amount of time until Corey Alexander went by.
Yeah, at this stage, PJ's race is run, and it's going to come as a big surprise or a shock to him when it gets when he finishes this race.
Especially because, Jason, he could roll out of it.
Yes.
He could have rolled out of it if he knew laps ago and then raced for that position to get it back.
Yeah,
it was just a matter of giving up 2 positions. It didn't mean he was going to finish 2 positions back.
That's right.
It means he had to drop back.
That's exactly right. Richie Escalante's been lapped by our leader. Richie Escalante running back in very uncharacteristic 12th place. Not used to seeing that, as Gagne is going to get the white flag when he comes by this lap. Yeah, it's a confusing spot for PJ to be in, and it's you know, it's a shame because he's put in a great ride as he still has the leader right there within sight. He probably is looking at that pit board and thinking P4. I don't know what I don't understand, you know. So they tried to write the word drop on there, drop back, and just too much to read, too much information to try to get. As you look back a little bit further, there's Bobby Fong, I believe, that just has come through. There's Danilo, there's JD Beach now. Danilo Lewis is just up in front of Bobby Fong, but there's JD Beach. And you saw Corey just up the back, not too far behind him, 3.6 seconds behind JD Beach. So again, for JD Beach, he's in a podium spot already, Greg, and he's done a really nice job. We were lucky enough to have Jake Zemke up here in the booth with us earlier, and I said to him, JD looked a little tentative yesterday, and he goes, yeah, he's a racer. And he's exactly right. JD's that guy that's, as soon as the lights go out for the race, JD's always going to try to get his way forward, and that's exactly what he's done today here in the wet.
So on this final lap, we get confirmation that P.J. Jacobsen will be relegated 2 positions. So our podium looks like on this final lap, if everyone can make it to the checkered flag, Gagne, JD Beach, those 2 fresh and lean progressive Yamahas on top of the podium, and then Corey Alexander in a good position to put his Tytler Cycles BMW on the box as well. So for the Tytler Cycles team, unfortunately for P.J. Jacobsen, he's not going to be on the podium, but they'll at least have one of their guys on it.
He's already goon riding.
Goon riding. So for Jake Gagne, coming onto the front straightaway as comfortable as you like it. There's a look at the blue and white fresh and lean progressive Yamaha. To the stripe, Gagne takes the checkered flag, and the first win here at Medallia Superbike race number 1 in the rain. And here comes JD Beach, another Superbike podium for the Kentucky resident. And the flat tracker turned road racer once again gets on the podium. And now we await the arrival of Corey Alexander.
Yeah, he's already gone through. There's Corey there.
So for Corey, 4th on the racetrack. Not bad, his 2nd day on this motorcycle. And he's padding the tank because he likes that 2023 M1000RR. And once we get the position sorted, still waiting, Richie Escalante comes across at 11th. And Matthew Skoltz gets by Josh Herron on the last lap, so Skoltz ends up in 5th place as we still await the arrival of some riders. There's Josh Herron, as we saw on our timing and scoring screen. As you look at the left part of your screen, it's lap number 8, 36.714, the fastest lap of the race for Jake Gagne in these wet conditions.
What a ride from Benjamin Smith on a stock 1000 Yamaha R1. He's beat Hayden Gillum here. Hayden ends up 8th. Looks like Nolan Lampkin on another stock 1000 bike is going to maybe get himself a 9th place finish here.
Here's a look at that finish, Jay. So Herron was there on this last lap, and let's take a look at what happened.
Oh, Matthew decided he wanted to try to go down the inside, and he gave Herron a little nudge.
Love
so
tap.
that's going to knock Josh off out into the grass.
Well, I'm sure those 2 are going to be talking about that later, but when we come back to New Jersey Motorsports Park, we're going to talk to Jake Gagne and find out how much he enjoyed that race in the rain.
Well, as we suspected, a fairly eventful race, although not so much for Jake Gagne. He got a classic Jake Gagne start and was able to open up a margin and just maintain it. You got to feel for P.J. Jacobsen, obviously, in these conditions. Tough to see flags and the like. When you saw that Gabriel De Silva was down, at that point, maybe, you think, yeah, just give that spot back right away. But he didn't see a flag. He did what he could, and it's impossible to read these pit boards in these conditions.
Well, even with these conditions, there's so much going on. He's making a pass, so he probably doesn't see the flag or see someone down. So it's
true.
It's unfortunate in these conditions just being tricky, and then the pit board, there's no way he can read that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just impossible. I don't even think he could read that in the dry. So it's unfortunate. He rode really well, and
he did.
Just hate to see it, just bad luck.
Yeah, tough break for him, obviously. But J.D. Beach just doing another superb job after a podium and a third place in that first race at Circuit of the Americas. Now up into second, making it a 1-2 podium sweep for the Progressive Fresh and Lean Yamahas. And then Corey Alexander picking it up for Tytler Cycle. A tremendous ride by Corey after, he had such hopes after that Brainerd test and had the big wreck and everything just sort of fell apart. He's kept chipping away at it, and we call it the great equalizer, and he got out there and rode the wheels off that.
Yeah, that was a great ride, and Corey deserves it. He's had a lot of, talk about PJ having some bad luck this year. Corey, just one thing after another with, engines and things like that. And, he puts a lot into making that program happen and his own program. And, having a bad year, it's awesome for him to come here and get rewarded with his first Superbike podium in front of his home crowd. So it's great to see when somebody puts a lot of work in and then they get to come here and he gets to enjoy the reward.
Absolutely. Well earned for him. And he's got his name on a mighty good cup of coffee, too. P.J. Jacobsen does end up fourth. Matthew Skoltz and Josh Herron. That one's going to be looked at, I think, rather closely by the officials. You can see Matt realized, he put his foot down, he realized, I'm in too deep. But still in all, there was the bump, and, that's going to get some pretty serious review.
Yeah, that's going to get a look. It was just kind of toward the end of the race. He was just too far back to come in there and knock someone off the track. So it's definitely going to be under review and probably something coming along later.
And you saw Matthew Skoltz walking away fairly dejectedly. Based on the form he had this morning in the wet, I'm sure he expected a bit more. But Jake Gagne, 40th win in Superbikes with J.D. Beach and Corey Alexander joining him on the podium.
Hometown favorite Corey Alexander coming in after he just learned he got third place. And one of his lead guys, DJ, congratulating him. There's his uncle Richie and his dad, Dwayne, there as well. Boy, Jason, that is one happy crew. Let's take a look at these results as we got everything sorted with the P.J. Jacobsen penalty. So it is Gagne, J.D. Beach, and Corey Alexander that are going to be on the box. Unfortunately, after an outstanding run for P.J., he gets relegated after passing under a waving yellow flag in fourth. Matthew Skoltz picks it up, and he is in fifth with Herron sixth. Benjamin Smith, Hayden Gillum, and Nolan Lampkin. Good run for him in ninth place. Well, that was certainly a fun race here at New Jersey Motorsports Park. And it looked like your number one plate, Jake Gagne, who won by 16 seconds in the record books, had a lot of fun, and he's with Hannah now.
We've seen Jake Gagne on the top step of this podium plenty of times, and the championship is wrapped up. But this race was certainly a different challenge all its own. Jake, how was this victory different from so many we've seen this season?
It was fun. I mean, we had that session this morning, but that little bit of rain before the race made the track tricky. Like, man, I don't think I've slid around that much, almost crashed that many times in a rain race. But, this Yamaha is just working so good in the wet stuff and through the puddles. And I was having a lot of fun. The gap in the beginning was way back and forth. I think I had a really solid first lap or two, but it was way back and forth. I didn't know who was behind me. I just tried to keep my head down because like it was so easy to make a mistake out there. But hats off to the TAC Yamaha, Progressive, Fresh and Lean, Rye Helmets, Alpine Stars, all the fans, man, for sticking it out here in this weather. I know you guys don't care, and we appreciate you being out here in this stuff. And yeah, some more good racing this afternoon and tomorrow. And yeah, again, hats off to these guys. Hats off to Corey for getting it on the podium, man. That's awesome. And JD to be second. Good day for the team, and it'll be another brutal one tomorrow. So.
Congratulations to Jake Gagne, and backing him up in second place today, JD Beach, his second podium appearance for MotoAmerica on the Superbike this season. JD, it's certainly been a challenge getting back up to speed on the Superbike, but what did you need to do and focus on in order to get this bike to the podium in the rain?
I just had to finish. I mean, the rain out here is residential. I mean, it's so slick and it's super hard. And when I'm behind guys, I can go a good pace. But this morning I was struggling. I didn't really feel great. But Richard said, "Hey, you got the same bike, the same tires. You just need to go." So off the line, I just got a good start, and I just went. And I tried to ride the pace of the guys in front of me, and we were able to bring it home in second. I mean, this is crazy. I was looking at the radar all day today, seeing it was going to rain, and I'm like, I mean, I don't get a chance to ride a Superbike very much, so I was hoping it would be dry, but we put it on the box in the rain, and I think we're going to have another rain race tomorrow, and I think it's going to be exciting. So we got some homework to do to keep up with these boys, but we'll keep fighting.
A Fresh and Lean Progressive Yamaha 1-2 for Jake Gagne and JD Beach, rounding out the podium. His first on a full-blown Superbike. Third place today for you, Corey Alexander. And what a race you had. Tell us about it.
Oh man, I was just ecstatic with fourth. I didn't know I had a podium until I pulled in here into the pits. So I would have been celebrating a lot harder with the fans out there that were sitting out in the rain. But man, from 13th on the grid, just the way these last few races have gone, my people around me know it's been tough, and super thankful. Just super thankful. That's it. Thanks to the whole Tyler Cycle Racing team, all my family, everybody from Hudson Valley Motorcycle, my personal sponsors, Sal's Pizza, Anytime Fitness, Prestige Services Group, all the family at Chuckwalla Valley Raceway. We'll see you guys next week, and hopefully get to do this again tomorrow.
Big congrats, Corey Alexander, rounding out your Medallia Superbike podium, guys.
They better have brought some Sal's Pizza down here from New York. I mean, I'm just saying, racing's an emotional sport, folks, and it's been a tough year for the Stock 1000 champion. JD Beach having fun in Winter Circle. We'll be back to NJMP in a minute.
Well, you could hear the emotion, obviously, in Corey Alexander's voice, having this happen and, being able to do this. You talked about the struggles and the like. The amazing thing to me is Supersport, 13th to 3rd, Kayla Yakov. Superbike, 13th to 3rd, Corey Alexander. Some great stories.
Great stories, and we talk about it, the rain, just you never know. It just throws so many curveballs at it because you just never know what can happen. Not only the rain, but also the track being tricky. And so these rain races are not all the riders really like them, but they're fun to watch because you just never know what happened. And for Corey, I just love seeing the emotion come out of a guy. It just shows you what he puts into it and what it means to him. Absolutely. And then, obviously, let's not forget a great ride by Benjamin Smith on the number 78 Benjamin Smith Racing Yamaha up into 7th. Superb run for him. Hayden Gillum on that hybrid Disrupt Suzuki, a good run. Nolan Lampkin up into the top 9 on the stock 1000 bike. The surprise to me there was Danilo Lewis. He was so fast in that morning wet session and just somehow couldn't get untracked, if you will, and get going here. And then, Bobby Fong, just to see him that far back, a little bit of a surprise, too. Yeah, he was there early in the race, so I'm not sure if something came in. And then also Richie Escalante just kind of, not sure if he ran off or had a problem, but, getting lapped. It's just really weird to see. But, tomorrow is another new day. Everybody today got qualifying 2 in the wet. They got a race in the wet. They got tons of data. And tomorrow, I think everybody should be – some guys are going to be a little better, and some guys are probably going to make some changes and go the wrong way.
Yeah, you can't over-massage a bike, when it's working great and go, I'm going to make that one last little tweak, and it just goes pear-shaped on you. So you got to be very mindful of that sort of thing. We saw Matthew Scholz as he walked, through the paddock. You could just see, the attitude. He was upset. And understandably, he was so fast in the wet this morning. And obviously, that bump with Josh Herron will be looked at. But just, having that off and just having the issues when he was so quick, that's got to be gut-wrenching.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult. I mean, and he just made a mistake. And that's the thing with, actually both of them were just a mistake. And he's out there. JD's right behind him, so he can't slow down.
Yep.
The track is so tricky. Just got in turn 4, looked like a little hot and ran off. But he's going to be disappointed just to throw a podium away. And, he loves his team. And, he would have liked to reward those guys after Coda was a rough weekend getting them a podium. And now we don't know what's going to happen with the incident with Josh Hayes or Josh Herron. So might be more to come.
Might be more to come. And you know what? Had it been dry and he ran off at the exit of 4 there, he'd have just held it up, got back on track and went. But it's so wet here, and that was the issue. Front end washed out, and down he went. So tough stuff for a few of the riders, but for Jake Gagne, JD Beach runs to the podium.
Medallia Superbike coverage is brought to you by Medallia, the pioneer in customer and employee experience. By Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series. And by Geico Motorcycle. Visit geico.com to see how easy covering your ride can be.
Podium celebrations as, Corey he's on the 3rd step of the podium, right, Jay?
Yeah, it's still
which is a little bit lower than 2nd, but still they get to celebrate as Jake Gagne. Mo's on the podium too, getting that team trophy. Let's get down to Hannah, who has another story for us. Hey, Hannah.
For PJ Jacobsen, he did receive a penalty for passing under a waving yellow flag. He was supposed to give back 2 positions on the grid. However, the team struggled to really communicate that with him. PJ, were you aware of this penalty? If not, were you kind of confused by what your team was putting on your pit board?
Yeah, I didn't really understand at all. My main thing was just keep hunting down Gagne, and I didn't even know or see a yellow flag out there, It was like pouring rain, and I was in a mix of JD, Josh, and some other guy, I think, so I don't even know or didn't even see a yellow flag at all, so I wasn't aware of anything, and there was no communication towards me that I could understand at all. So I don't know, I was just doing my job, and I think the penalty is pretty harsh. At least there should have been like a time penalty or something like that, but I don't know, it's kind of it's a joke, but whatever. We're out here racing in pouring rain weather, and trying to find a yellow flag is pretty difficult.
Penalty aside, you had an absolutely great ride in really difficult conditions. What was the biggest takeaway that you can use to your advantage tomorrow?
Yeah, the bike was feeling really good. Scotty and Peter did a great job, especially Peter with the electronics. He did a great job. So I was feeling really well in the race, but my tires started going off there at the end. So I feel like I just couldn't push to get Gagne because I kept losing the rear in the corner entry. But yeah, I was pretty happy, and we can work on some things for tomorrow, and maybe try to get a win, and I guess be aware of yellow flags.
Thanks, PJ. Guys.
PJ, of course, in his career, Jason, over in Europe, has got plenty of experience and is super fast in these conditions, and I understand his frustration.
Well, no question. I mean, if you miss a yellow flag and you don't see it, that's one thing. To get a penalty on top of that is another, because if you can't, it's like I said, it's hard to read pit boards when you're going that by. I think a time penalty, something like that, like he said, might have been appropriate, because it's just too hard to get that message to the riders that, hey, you got to drop 2 positions, and you're going by every lap trying to figure out what you got going on.
And I'm sure the AMA-FIM will take a look at that process as well moving forward. Well, we'll step away. We have more coverage coming at you from Medallia Superbike race number 1 as Jake Gagne gives us the thumbs up through the rain.
Well, we just saw at the end of that interview with Hannah that PJ, that dejected walk, nobody around him heading back to his garage after the interview, and it just sort of put a period on just the frustration. And it's understanding. And the interesting thing to me here is that he gets past. He's right there. He's past Josh, and they're not to the incident yet. But there's the yellow.
There's the yellow, and then there's another worker as well that probably has a waving yellow. And then also too, the track has different camera. There's more cameras than the ones that we just see possibly. So I don't know. There's definitely a guy down right in the middle of the track. You're going to see it as they come through here. There's no debate about that.
Yep.
But it's really unfortunate for PJ. And I can feel his pain because it is really hard to see in the wet when it's pouring like this. The shields are sometimes fogging up. Here it is.
And it's confusing what the pit board was too.
So I can see where he's upset, but at the same time, there's rules and they can't change them because it's wet. So you got to be consistent, whether or not you agree or not. It's disappointing, but if there was a waving yellow there, he definitely made the pass. So I feel bad for PJ. He rode a great race. Didn't deserve that, but there's camera footage and it happened.
Well, and what it comes down to is the normal rule is the flag station. It's a straight line across the track, and if he didn't have his nose ahead of Josh by the time they got to where that imaginary line at that flag station would be, then he definitely passed under yellow. If he got it done before that, then in theory he didn't. So that's what I'm sure is going to be looked at and reviewed. But I think the bigger thing here on this discussion, obviously, is in these conditions, would it make more sense, obviously, to be able to just say, look, you pass under yellow, it's, however far that gap's going to be, that's your time penalty. And then if you could race ahead, okay.
I think you would have to do it. If you did change that to a time penalty, you would have to do it wet and dry.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's consistent.
Yeah.
And the thing is, just because it didn't, was kind of confusing today, doesn't mean that it was the wrong call or the wrong penalty to drop back 2 spots. But like he said, the writing on his board, there was zero chance he was going to be able to really read that and figure out what that means. He had a board out there. MotoAmerica had a board that said, hey, drop 2 spots. He didn't see it. I understand that, the spray and how wet it is, so I can understand how disappointed he is. We talk about at the end of the year, good results, home crowd, heck of a ride, and thought he's on a podium, and he comes in, and the team says you're 4th.
Well, that's the real shame of it to me, is it was a sterling ride. And he really showed something there in these conditions. He's got that on the back of his leathers where he said, they think I lost it. And he showed with a pole in the dry, and he showed with great speed in the wet. And obviously, as this shot tells you, he showed with a lot of wind.
And this morning in that second qualifier in the wet, they struggled. Big time. So it was awesome to see them rebound in this race. That's just credit to him and his crew, making those adjustments and getting ready for the race.
Absolutely. Winds are still really, really stout here, but the rain has actually abated just a little bit. We can see some people out there with umbrellas down, hoods off, and hopefully that'll stick around for a bit.
We're back here at New Jersey Motorsports Park. Medallia Superbike race number 1 in the books. Our penultimate race of the year. That means we only have 1 race to go in the 2023 season for Medallia Superbike, and this is what it looks like in the point standings. And for Josh Herrin, Jay, let's do some math. Is that 25 points? I see the difference.
Yeah, it is actually. So,
well, that means that Josh Herrin should be able to solidify his position in 2nd place in the championship. Well, that'll do it for us. We're going to look forward to seeing you race number 2. Will it be these kind of conditions, or is it going to be dry? Better come back to find out. For Hannah Lope and Jason Pridmore, I'm Craig White. Thanks so much for joining us. Can't wait to see you again for Medallia Superbike race number 2.